Hello. Welcome to Reality Stories, where stories do come alive. Please subscribe and share with friends. Now relax and enjoy the story. It was the first Saturday in August, and the Okoros were bustling with excitement. Their annual family retreat was just 2 days away, and the mansion was alive with movement. Boxes packed, servants organizing clothes, and food being prepared in large quantities. Madame Victoria Okoro stood at the balcony, giving final instructions to the maids. Her voice was firm and calculated, the way it always was when she was in charge. Make sure Daniel's white caftan is ironed. And don't forget the citronella candles. I don't want mosquitoes disturbing us at the lake house, she said. Yes, ma, the maid replied. Downstairs, Mr. Okoro was in his study, flipping through a business magazine, pretending to read. But anyone paying attention would notice his leg tapping. He hated these retreats but had no say in them. It was Victoria's way of keeping the family united. Then the doorbell rang. Someone get that. Victoria shouted from upstairs. A young housekeeper opened the large oak door and froze. Standing at the entrance was a teenage boy, no older than 17. He was tall, slim, with deep brown eyes and tightly coiled hair. He wore a faded blue hoodie and black trousers. A worn-out backpack hung on his shoulder. Yes? Can I help you? The housekeeper asked. The boy cleared his throat. My name is Caleb, he said. I've come to see the Okoros. I'm supposed to visit in August. The housekeeper blinked, confused. In August? Yes. My mother told me to come every August. She said it was important. Before the girl could respond, Victoria descended the stairs, her heels clicking sharply against the marble. She paused when she saw the boy. Yes? She asked with sharp gaze. Caleb bowed his head slightly, then raised his eyes. Nah, I'm Caleb. My mother asked me to come here every August, before she died. Victoria's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind her eyes. Confusion? Recognition? I don't know your mother, she said calmly. You did, Caleb said without blinking. Her name was Linda. The name landed like thunder in the room. Victoria's lips tightened. She inhaled slowly. I think you're mistaken. No, Ma, I'm not. Victoria stared at him for a long moment. The silence stretched. Where are you from? Wari, he replied. But I came from school in Benin. What school? Osei's Memorial Secondary School. Do you have any relatives here? No, just you. The way he said it made Victoria uneasy. She turned to the housekeeper. Give him water. Ma! The girl asked, surprised. Water and bread. He looks tired. Caleb stepped into the mansion slowly, his eyes scanning everything. The chandelier, the portraits, the expensive furniture. He looked like someone seeing a memory for the first time, though it wasn't supposed to be his. As he sat down and sipped water, Victoria watched him carefully. He wasn't rude. He wasn't aggressive. But there was something about him, something unsettling. You said your mother is dead? She asked. Yes. She died last year. Cancer. I'm sorry, Victoria said, though her voice lacked emotion. Thank you, Ma. And she told you to come here? Every August. She said it was important I never miss it. Did she say why? Caleb paused. She said you would explain. Victoria's chest tightened. She suddenly felt too warm. Well, there's no explanation, she said firmly. I don't know your mother. I don't know you. Caleb gave a small nod. Still, Ma, if it's okay, I'd like to stay the weekend. Just this August. Before she could respond, Mr. Okoro walked in from the study. What's going on here? He asked. Victoria turned slightly. A visitor. Claims his mother told him to come here every August. Mr. Okoro looked at Caleb. Their eyes met. Something shifted. But Mr. Okoro smiled, a fake, tight-lipped smile. Young man, you must be very tired. Why don't you eat and go home? Caleb stood. Please, sir, I won't cause any trouble. I'll just stay quietly and go back after the weekend. I've always come in August. This one shouldn't be different. Mr. Okoro looked at Victoria, who gave a reluctant nod. He can stay, she said. And with that, the boy who shouldn't have belonged became part of the Okoro household, observing, listening, waiting. That night, as the family dined together, Caleb sat quietly at the far end of the table, barely touching his food. But he wasn't hungry. He was studying them, and none of them knew. Their past had just walked through the front door. By the next morning, Caleb had made himself useful. He helped carry boxes, assisted in the kitchen, and even cleaned the garden without being told. The housekeepers liked him. He was polite, neat, and respectful. But the atmosphere in the house had changed. Mr. Okoro had barely spoken since the previous evening. He spent most of his time pacing the study. Victoria was unusually quiet. It was during lunch that the real unease began. Victoria had made native stew with dried fish and scent leaf, a delicacy she hadn't cooked in nearly 2 decades. It was one of her personal favorites, something she used to make in her early marriage days. As everyone sat at the table, the aroma filled the air. Caleb said softly as he scooped a spoonful into his mouth. Tastes exactly like how my mom used to describe it. Victoria paused, her spoon midair. Mr. Okoro slowly turned toward Caleb. What do you mean? Victoria asked. Caleb smiled. She said, you made it once. The day she came to the lake house? She never forgot it. Said the scent leaf reminded her of home. Victoria dropped her spoon. Lake house? Yes, Ma. Caleb nodded, chewing. My mom said it was the only day she felt special. That you treated her like a sister. Silence. A heavy one. Sandra, their 23-year-old daughter, looked confused. Mummy, who's Linda? She asked. Victoria forced a smile. Just someone we knew. A long time ago. Must have been a really close friend, Sandra said, pointing to Caleb. If she asked her son to visit us every year. Mr. Okoro interrupted. We don't need to discuss this over food. Victoria nodded. Exactly. Let's eat. But Caleb didn't stop. He gently placed a spoon down and looked directly at Mr. Okoro. My mom died with regret. She said the promise she kept for you ruined her life. Mr. Okoro stiffened. What promise? Sandra asked again, curious. Enough? Mr. Okoro barked. The table fell silent. Caleb didn't flinch. He calmly drank from his cup, eyes never leaving Mr. Okoro's face. She never told me what the promise was, he continued, but she said it had something to do with why I wasn't allowed to know my father. Mr. Okoro pushed his chair back and stood. I said that's enough. Caleb sat back, quiet, but unshaken. Sandra stared at her father. Daddy, what's going on? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. This whole story is just a coincidence. Don't read meaning into it. Victoria stood too, trying to defuse the tension. Let's go and rest, everyone. Big day tomorrow. But Caleb remained seated. His voice came soft but firm. She waited for years. Hoped someone would come for her. But no one did. She never blamed you. But she blamed herself for keeping the promise. He looked at Victoria. She said you were kind, but scared. Victoria's hands trembled. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, her voice cracking. I think you do, Caleb whispered. That night, Caleb sat by the window of the guest room, looking out into the garden. He pulled out a small tape recorder from his backpack and pressed record. Day 2. I mentioned the lake house. Victoria panicked. Mr. Okoro shouted. The stew worked. They remember my mother, but they're not ready to admit it. I'm not leaving until someone tells the truth. He clicked it off, then reached into his bag again. This time, he pulled out a worn-out photograph. It showed a younger Victoria and a smiling young woman, Linda, standing by a lake. Behind them stood a younger Mr. Okoro, his hand barely touching Linda's shoulder. Caleb stared at the photo. Don't worry, Mum, he whispered. They'll remember. Even if they lie, I'll remind them. And outside the mansion, as the August breeze blew gently through the night, secrets buried for 17 years began to stir. The house was quiet that evening. Too quiet. Everyone had retired to their rooms after an awkward dinner. Mr. Okoro hadn't said a word during the meal. Victoria forced polite smiles but avoided Caleb's eyes. Sandra kept throwing glances his way. curious and confused. Only one person moved freely. Mama Peace. She was the oldest staff in the Okoro household, a short, wrinkled woman with wise eyes and gray hair always wrapped in a scarf. She had served the family for over 20 years and was more like a shadow than a servant, always present, barely noticed. That night, as she washed the last of the dishes, she paused. From the kitchen window, she could see Caleb sitting alone in the garden, looking at the stars. She sighed deeply. She had recognized the boy the moment she saw him. The eyes, the nose, even the way he walked. So much like her. Like her, Linda. Mama Peace had not seen Linda in nearly 2 decades, but she had not forgotten. The memory came rushing back. A crying young girl, a hidden pregnancy, a whispered secret between the maid and the mistress, then a bribe, a silent departure, and that name, you will never speak of this, Peace. Never. That night, Mama Peace tossed and turned in her room. Her heart was heavy. She could not betray the Okoros, but she could not ignore the boy. At midnight, she stood up, pulled out an old notepad from her Bible drawer, and scribbled a note in shaky handwriting. They will never accept you. Be careful. She folded it, crept out of her room, and tiptoed down the hall. Caleb's room was the last door on the left. She paused, checked to make sure no one was watching, then bent down and slid the note under the door. Then she turned and walked away, tears silently falling down her cheeks. Inside the room, Caleb had not yet slept. He was lying on the bed, eyes open, thoughts running wild. He had questions, so many questions, but no answers. Then he saw it, the paper sliding in from under the door. He got up slowly, picked it up, and read the short sentence. They will never accept you. Be careful. There was no name, but he knew it could only be one person. Mama Peace. He smiled faintly. At least one person in the house wasn't pretending anymore. He opened his school bag, brought out the small recorder, and clicked record. Day 3. They still pretend they don't know. But she knows. Mama Peace saw me, and I saw it in her eyes. Recognition. I found the first crack in the wall. I'll keep pressing. Click. The next morning, Caleb woke early. He helped carry bags, fetch water, and made himself useful as always. He noticed how Mama Peace avoided eye contact with him, but that didn't bother him. Her silence had spoken louder than words. What bothered him was Mr. Okoro. The man barely looked at him, and when he did, there was something sharp behind the smile, like a warning. After breakfast, Caleb saw his chance. Mr. Okoro stepped out for a meeting at the estate management office, and Victoria was having her nails done in the backyard gazebo. The study door was unlocked. Caleb entered, slowly closing the door behind him. The room was filled with books, files, and awards. Trophies from business seminars. Family portraits. He searched the shelves, then moved to the cabinet drawers. Finally, he saw a small wooden box tucked behind a stack of books. He pulled it out. It was an old photo album covered in dust. His heart beat faster. He sat at the desk and flipped through the pages. There were pictures of vacations, birthdays, baby showers. Then his hand froze. One page was ripped, violently torn out, but the torn half remained on the next page, a woman's hand holding a baby, and a man standing behind her. Caleb squinted. The man's face had been partially scratched out, but the jawline, the posture, it was unmistakably Mr. Okoro. He looked closer. The woman, his mother, Linda, and the baby in her arms. Him. Caleb's hand trembled. His fingers slowly traced the image. So it was true. He took out his phone and snapped a picture. Suddenly, "What are you doing in here?" The voice came sharp and angry. Caleb spun around. Mr. Okoro stood at the doorway, his face dark with fury. I was just looking. How dare you go through my personal things? You lied to me, Caleb said, holding up the photo. This is you. This is her. And this is me. Mr. Okoro walked forward and snatched the album from his hand. You've crossed a line, boy. A serious line. Caleb stood his ground. Why won't you tell the truth? Because there's no truth to tell. Mr. Okoro snapped. You show up at my house, start digging through my life, and expect answers? My mother said you made her a promise. She died with that pain. And now I'm here, because she wanted me to know who I am. Mr. Okoro's jaw tightened. Caleb stepped closer. His voice dropped. I don't want your money. I don't want your house. I want the truth. That's all. Mr. Okoro pointed to the door. Get out. Get out of this room. And out of my house. Caleb didn't move. No. I said get out. I'm not leaving, Caleb said firmly. Not until someone tells the truth. They stood in silence for a long time, man and boy, neither backing down. Finally, Mr. Okoro turned away, breathing hard. You don't know what you're doing, he muttered. You think this is some movie? This is real life. You're opening a door that cannot be closed. I already opened it, Caleb said. Then he walked out, quietly, calmly, like someone who had just won the first round of a long war. That night, Caleb sat in his room again. He took out the recorder. Day 4. I found the photo. He knows. He's scared. Not because of me, but because the truth might ruin him. He told me to leave. I told him I won't. Mama said to come every August, but I think this might be the last one. Click. He looked out the window at the Okoro mansion. So big, so beautiful, so full of lies. He whispered into the night. Tell me the truth or I'll find it myself. And somewhere in the darkness, the ghost of a woman named Linda watched her son and smiled. It was Sunday afternoon, and the Okoro mansion felt tense, like a storm waiting to explode. Caleb stayed mostly in his room, only stepping out when necessary. Mr. Okoro didn't speak to him at all. Victoria kept a forced smile whenever she crossed paths with him, but her eyes avoided his. Sandra, however, was different. She had started sitting beside Caleb during breakfast, asking him small questions, watching him with growing curiosity. You're quiet, she said one morning as they ate yam and egg sauce in the kitchen. Caleb shrugged. I guess I have a lot on my mind. Sandra smiled. I can imagine. This house is intense. I'm used to intense, he replied. My mom was intense too. Sandra looked up. Tell me about her. Caleb paused, then spoke softly. Her name was Linda. She was strong, soft-spoken, but never afraid. She used to talk about this house and this family. She always said, one day you'll go there and you'll understand everything I couldn't explain. Sandra frowned. Did she say how she knew my parents? Caleb looked at her, hesitating. She said they were once close, until they weren't. Sandra nodded slowly. Sounds familiar. My parents, they don't talk much about their past. Everything before me and Daniel is a locked door. They both chuckled lightly, and for a moment it felt normal, comfortable. But the peace was broken that evening. Sandra was walking past her parents' bedroom when she heard them arguing. Their voices were hushed but sharp, angry. She paused near the door, ears alert. I told you we should have sent him away. Mr. Okoro's voice snapped. You let him stay. Now look where we are. I let him stay because I know it was her son. Victoria whispered harshly. There was a pause. Then Victoria said something that made Sandra freeze. You said Linda was gone forever. Mr. Okoro didn't respond immediately. Victoria's voice broke. You promised me. You promised me we'd never see her again, that she took the money and disappeared. She did disappear, Mr. Okoro replied coldly. She was never supposed to send him here. Sandra stepped back, her heart pounding. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. She rushed to her room, shut the door, and sat on the floor, hands over her mouth. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, Sandra knocked on Caleb's door. He opened it slowly, surprised to see her. Can we talk? She asked. He nodded and stepped aside. They sat on the edge of the bed, silence between them for a while. Finally, Sandra spoke. I heard my parents arguing about your mother. Caleb's face tensed. They said her name, she whispered. Linda. My mom said she was supposed to be gone forever. Caleb closed his eyes for a second, then opened his bag. He pulled out the torn photo and handed it to her. Sandra looked at it. Her breath caught. That's my dad. Caleb nodded. That's my mum. And me, as a baby. Sandra stared at the picture, her voice low. So it's true. I didn't come to cause trouble, Caleb said softly. I came because my mother, she wanted me to know where I came from, who I came from. Sandra looked at him, tears forming in her eyes. I'm sorry, she whispered, for everything, for how cold my parents have been. Caleb smiled faintly. It's not your fault. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. They turned. It was Mr. Okoro. He looked between the two of them. His face was unreadable. Sandra, go to your room, he said. Dad. Now. She hesitated, then stood and walked out, glancing back at Caleb before disappearing. Mr. Okoro entered the room, closed the door behind him, and leaned against it. He took a deep breath. You wanted the truth? Caleb stood, silent. Mr. Okoro looked him in the eye. You're not just a visitor. You're my son. The words hung in the air like smoke. Caleb didn't move, didn't speak. Mr. Okoro walked to the window, looking out into the night. It was a long time ago. I was young, stupid. Your mother worked for one of our family businesses. It was never meant to be serious. You left her, Caleb said quietly. Yes, because I was engaged to Victoria, and because I was scared. She told me she was pregnant, and I panicked. You told her to leave. I offered her money. I told her to move away. I thought it was best. Caleb's fist clenched. And you never thought about me? Mr. Okoro turned to him. I tried to forget, but I never did. Every August, I wondered, would she send you? Would you come? I did, Caleb said. And now I'm here. And I'm not leaving. Mr. Okoro nodded slowly. I suppose you shouldn't. He walked out, and for the first time since he arrived, Caleb felt the door to the truth open. The next morning, Caleb rose early. He showered, dressed, and picked up the small cassette recorder from his bag. It was old, worn, but precious. It held his mother's final voice. He had listened to it dozens of times. But today, he wanted the Okoros to hear it too. At breakfast, he walked into the dining room, holding the recorder. Victoria, Mr. Okoro, Sandra, and Daniel were seated. Silence filled the room when they saw him. I have something to play, Caleb said, standing at the head of the table. He placed the recorder on the table and pressed play. Hello, Caleb. If you're hearing this, then you found them. You found the house. The family I once loved and lost. Don't let their silence confuse you. Don't let them make you feel unwanted. You were never a mistake. Victoria's spoon clattered onto her plate. Your father, he made a choice. And so did I. I chose to raise you alone, to protect you. But part of me always hoped one day they would come looking for you. But they never did. That's why I'm sending you now. So they'll have to see you, have to face what they ran from. The room was still. If they pretend not to know, remind them. If they say I was nothing, show them your heart. You are not the shame they tried to bury. You are the proof that I lived. I love you. Always. Mom. Click. No one moved. Victoria stood slowly, her hand covering her mouth. She recorded that. Her voice cracked. Caleb nodded. 3 weeks before she died. Sandra wiped her eyes. Even Daniel looked shaken. Mr. Okoro stared at his plate. Silent. Caleb turned to Victoria. You helped her leave, didn't you? Victoria's eyes filled with tears. Yes. Why? Because I was afraid. Afraid she would destroy everything. My marriage. My name. I asked her to take the money and disappear. She did. Caleb's voice was low, but strong. She didn't disappear. She lived. She struggled. She raised me without help. And she never stopped believing that one day I'd find you. Victoria nodded, tears rolling down her face. I'm sorry. Caleb looked around the table. I'm not here to ruin anything. I'm just here because she wanted me to be seen. Sandra stood up and hugged him. You're seen, Caleb. By me. By us. Mr. Okoro finally spoke. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm ready to stop hiding. Caleb stepped back, holding the recorder close to his chest. She gave me everything. I just wanted the truth. And now I have it. And that morning, for the first time since arriving, Caleb smiled, because his mother's voice had finally been heard. By the next Sunday, the whispers had started. It began after Caleb's name appeared in the church bulletin under the Okoro household list for the youth fellowship. Someone asked, "Who is Caleb Okoro?" Someone else said, "He's not a real Okoro. That boy just appeared from nowhere." By Wednesday, gossip had become wildfire. At the hair salon, during Bible study, even at the supermarket, people whispered, "I heard the Okoro man had a child outside wedlock 17 years ago, and they're just finding out." No, they always knew. They just covered it. Victoria noticed it first. Her usual group of women at church no longer hugged her tightly. Their smiles were stretched, awkward. One even leaned close and whispered, "We're praying for your family. Things like this can break a woman." That Sunday after service, a church elder pulled Mr. Okoro aside. "Sir, your family is loved in this community. But these stories, they don't glorify God." Mr. Okoro's jaw tightened. "Thank you, elder. We'll handle it." As they drove home from church, silence filled the car. Sandra stared out the window. Victoria looked straight ahead. Daniel fiddled with his phone. Caleb sat in the back, quiet. Finally, Mr. Okoro spoke. "This can't continue." "What do you mean?" Victoria asked. "He needs to go back to wherever he came from. The damage is too much." Victoria turned to him, slowly. "You want to throw your own son out? Again, I never asked him to come here. You let him in. And I don't regret it," she said sharply. Mr. Okoro gripped the steering wheel tighter. "You've seen what's happening. Our name, our image, it's breaking." Victoria nodded slowly. "Yes, it's breaking, but maybe it should." He stared at her. "We built this family on secrets," she said. "Now they're out. We can't send them away like a mistake we made twice. We started this. We must finish it." Silence followed. Even Caleb didn't speak. But deep inside, he knew something was shifting. Later that evening, as Victoria cleared her wardrobe, Sandra entered the room. "Mom, are you okay?" Victoria paused. "I will be." Sandra sat beside her. "Why didn't you tell me about Linda?" Victoria sighed. "Because I wanted you to have a father you could be proud of." Sandra blinked away tears. "But you helped him hide it." "I did. I made the worst mistake a woman can make. I protected a man instead of protecting another woman." Victoria touched Sandra's hand. "But now, I want to do what's right." The next morning, the Okoro compound gate was sprayed with red paint. Hypocrites! Everyone in the neighborhood saw it before the cleaners washed it off. Caleb watched from the balcony, heart heavy. He whispered, "Mom, I think they're finally paying attention." The tension in the house grew thicker each day. Mr. Okoro had become cold again, distant, silent during meals, locked up in his study most hours. One evening, Caleb walked past the study and paused. He could hear voices, his father and the family lawyer. The door wasn't fully shut. "I've updated the will," the lawyer was saying. "Remove the name, Caleb. Everything else remains." "Good," Mr. Okoro replied. "Let him say whatever he wants. I don't owe him anything." Caleb stepped back slowly, heart pounding. He had just been cut out. At dinner that night, he didn't speak. Sandra noticed. "Are you okay?" she asked. Caleb nodded. "Just tired." After dinner, Sandra went to her father. "Daddy, can we talk?" He was already halfway up the stairs. "Tomorrow, Sandra." "No," she said firmly. "Now." He turned, surprised at her tone. She met his eyes. "You cut him out of your will." Mr. Okoro's face tightened. "That's my business." "Then here's mine. If you don't recognize Caleb as your son, I'll leave this house. I'll change my name. And I'll never forgive you." His mouth opened, then closed. "You made a mistake, Daddy. Years ago. But now you're making again, twice. And I won't be a part of it. Victoria had just walked in and heard the last part. She's right, Victoria said. Mr. Okoro turned to her. Not you too. I begged that girl to leave 18 years ago. I paid her to disappear. And she did. But her silence cost her everything. She walked closer to him, voice trembling. She didn't die in childbirth, like you told everyone. That was your lie. She raised that boy. Alone, while we lived like nothing happened. Mr. Okoro shook his head. I was trying to protect our family. No, Victoria snapped. You were trying to protect yourself. Your image. Your pride. She looked at him, eyes firm. He is your blood. Whether or not you like it. And I am tired of pretending. Mr. Okoro stared at his wife, like he was seeing her for the first time. You were always stronger than me, he whispered. No, I just got tired of being silent. There was a long pause. Then Sandra said, Make it right, Daddy, while you still can. He turned away and didn't speak. The next day, Caleb found a sealed envelope slid under his door. Inside was a new copy of the will draft. His name was still missing. He folded it back, placed it on his table, and picked up the recorder. Day 8. I found my father, but I'm still waiting for him to find me. Click. That night, Victoria knocked on his door. He let her in. She held a small black envelope in her hand. I know it doesn't change anything, she said. But your mother, Linda, she wrote me once, years after she left. Caleb stared at her, shocked. Victoria handed over the envelope. I never replied. I was too ashamed, but I kept it. He opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a faded letter. Dear Victoria, I hope you're well. I left because I had no choice. I didn't want to break your home. I just wanted to raise my child in peace. I forgive you. I forgive him too. One day, he'll ask questions. I pray someone gives him answers. Tell him I loved him. Every day. Linda, tears spilled from Caleb's eyes. Victoria sat beside him and held his hand. I didn't give you the answers then, but I will now. And for the first time, the wall between them began to fall. It had been 9 days since Caleb arrived at the Okoro home. 9 long, emotional days filled with questions, anger, secrets, and silent tears. Now it was time for proof. Let's settle this once and for all, Caleb had said the day before. Mr. Okoro had agreed, reluctantly. He didn't want to face the results, but the pressure from Victoria, Sandra, and the church whispers had become too much. So they drove to a private lab in the city. The technician was quiet and professional. Just a quick mouth swab from both of you. Results will be ready in 48 hours. 2 days passed slowly. Victoria barely ate. Mr. Okoro stayed in his study. Caleb mostly stayed in his room, journaling. Finally, the call came. That evening, the family gathered in the sitting room. Caleb sat across from Mr. Okoro. Victoria sat beside her husband, her hands shaking slightly. Sandra clutched the result envelope, her hands sweaty. Do you want to open it? She asked. Mr. Okoro nodded stiffly. Go ahead. Sandra broke the seal and pulled out the white sheet. Her eyes scanned the document. Then she read aloud. Paternity test results. Probability of relationship. 99.9%. Conclusion. Mr. Benjamin Okoro is the biological father of Mr. Caleb F. No one moved. Victoria let out a deep breath, half relief, half sorrow. Sandra looked at her father. There. Now it's real. Mr. Okoro put his hands over his face. Caleb stood up. His voice was calm, not angry, not vengeful. I didn't come here for your money. I didn't come to shame you. I came because for 17 years I was invisible. I came so you'd stop pretending I didn't exist. Mr. Okoro slowly lowered his hands. His eyes were red. I don't expect to be your son overnight, Caleb continued, but I deserve to be acknowledged. Victoria wiped her eyes and nodded. You're right. Caleb looked around the room, then stepped toward the door. I'm going to pack my bags now. No, Sandra said quickly. You're not leaving. I was never meant to stay. She walked to him, gently touching his arm. You belong here now. Victoria stood. Let him decide. But Caleb, whatever you choose, we see you now. That's what matters. Mr. Okoro whispered, I'm sorry. Caleb turned. You didn't just hurt my mother. You broke something inside me. But I'm here, and I won't let your mistake become my prison. He walked out of the room, leaving them all in silence. That night, Caleb recorded one more message on his voice journal. Day 10. The truth is official. The test proves it. But I didn't need a lab. I always knew. I've got what I came for. Whether they change or not, I'm free. He clicked it off and stared at the ceiling. And for the first time since his arrival, he slept in peace. 1 year later, the sun was shining. The breeze was calm, and the garden looked exactly the same. August had come again. But everything else had changed. A black car pulled up in front of the Okoro mansion. The gate slowly opened. Caleb stepped out, taller, older, more confident. He wore jeans and a white shirt. His backpack hung casually from his shoulder. He stared at the house for a long time. Memories rushed back. That first day, the silence, the stew, the photo album, the whispers, the tears. The door opened. Sandra came running out. Caleb, she smiled, pulling him into a long hug. He hugged her tightly. You came out first this time. She smiled, pulling back. Of course. You're family now. They walked toward the garden together. How's everything? He asked. Sandra sighed. Strange. Quiet. Caleb nodded. And your dad? Sandra's smile faded. He's not the same. He had a mild stroke 2 months ago. He's bedridden now. Doesn't talk much. Caleb paused. I'm sorry. He asks about you sometimes. Mostly at night. Calls your name like he's still dreaming. And your mom? Sandra hesitated. She sits with him every evening. She doesn't say much anymore. But I think she's waiting for today. Caleb looked at the flowers in the garden. Last August, he said, I came looking for truth. It nearly broke all of us. Sandra nodded. But it also brought healing. He turned to her. Do you regret it? Not at all. She smiled again and said something that warmed his heart. This year, you're not just visiting. You're staying. Caleb blinked back emotion. I brought something, he said. He reached into his bag and brought out a small framed photo. Linda, his mother, smiling, holding him as a baby. She deserves a place here, he said. Sandra took the photo gently. We'll hang it in the hallway, next to our family tree. He looked around the compound one more time. Everything was still, peaceful. No more secrets. No more lies. And in that moment, Caleb finally felt what he had searched for all along. Not just truth, not just justice. Belonging.